We without objection, hear the PCS before the committee. Thank you. And so that is Representative Warren and Riddell to present. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Well, members, I got to tell you, I'm really excited to be presenting this bill. About 6 years ago, a couple of you on this committee actually worked with me as a primary sponsor on a music therapist bill. And since then, we've run into our problems over the years, the challenges in the Senate and their resistance to creating a licensing board. And I believe we've been able to address that issue this year. And but over the last last three terms, this has grown to, and it kind of come to an entity of its own. And I want to thank my co-primary, Representative Riddell, for an ingenious approach to this as well. What we're suggesting we create here is a thing called the North Carolina Healing Arts Commission. And this commission would be like an umbrella entity that would incorporate or take under its wing not only the music therapist in North Carolina, but also the reflexologist. And at the Senate's input on this, we have a companion bill in the Senate. It would take in what's called the naturopathic. I have the biggest trouble with that word for some reason. Naturopathic profession as well. And as I said, basically we would have the commission, which is an umbrella entity over these three professions, and it's set up so that any other practice, legitimate practice in the medical field that comes under this would be able to be incorporated into this commission as well. And the reason we're doing it this way is because each of these entities by themselves really encompass a very small number of people practicing in that field. When I first started working with the music therapist, I believe we had less than 100 folks in North Carolina who were practicing as a music therapist there. And the reflexologist, I believe we actually have about 75 or less. 45 or less. So, and I'm not sure what the number is on the naturopathic, but I believe that's about 50 or so too. So this gives power to these individual groups to be able to get a license to practice in the state, which of course broadens their ability to practice and also encourages growth in that field. I know in one of the other states, and doing the research on this bill, one of the other states pointed out that when they went to a licensing board for the naturopathic, their numbers increased dramatically. Looked upon as with the respect that it should have anyway. When you look at your PCS, you'll see there are similarities because it's under a commission, under the requirements to get a license under the Healing Arts Commission. And the one difference in each one of these requirements is the certification requirement for that respective field. Now, what we would have under the Healing Arts Commission is each one of these entities would have and create an advisory board or an advisory committee, excuse me, that specializes in oversight and enforcement of the articles of enforcement of the articles of the bill in their respective fields. And then in turn, they make recommendations to the commission regarding their respective fields. So, Representative, would you like to add to anything?
I think that's a good introduction.
Okay. So the commission would initially have 7 members. It would have 2 reflexologists, 2 from the music therapist, and 2 from the naturopathic, as well as 1 public member. These would be appointees made by the governor and by the Speaker of the House and also by the President Pro Tem. This bill is pretty comprehensive in respect to scope of practice and licensing fees and penalties and so forth on there. And I think you'll see the similarities in those as well as the slight discrepancies or differences between those fields because you have to respect each practice and its respect. But what's important about this is that it will bring reassurance to the public that when they're dealing with somebody who is a licensed, a North Carolina licensed practitioner, that they're in safe hands. They're in well-educated hands, and we think it's the way to go. And like I said, I'm very excited this year because this is the third term, or say the fifth year, that we've been trying to help these folks out in these respective fields. You know, we have three colleges, ECU and Queens and App State, that give 4-year programs, 4-year degrees in music therapy. But we don't have a license for them in North Carolina. So we're losing these young minds when they get educated and qualified to practice, as they generally will go to another state to get a license to practice there. So I would ask for your support on the bill. And Mr. Chair, stand ready unless my co has anything to say. We stand ready to answer any questions that may come up.
Okay. I think what we'll do first is a little housekeeping, and we had a bunch of pages run in and while you were presenting, so let's take care of that first. I got Jeffrey Chen, William Choplin, Austin Hoke, Casey Hoke, Sebastian Snyder, Advika Karthik, I'm sorry if I messed that up, and Justin Kim. Additionally, while we're at it, I failed to recognize our clerks, Penny Jordan and Polly Riddell, and then also our staff that's here, Ms. McGinnis, Mr. Evans, and Mr. McLaughlin. Thank you guys for being here. So we've got a number of people that have signed up to speak on this, and so what I think I'd like to do is have the public folks speak first and hear from the public, and then we can go ahead and have questions and debate, if that is acceptable. And so, David? Who's up first? Oh, I'm sorry. Dr. Robert Green. I forgot that he'd given me the list.
Hello, everybody. You going to hold it? Okay. My name is Dr. Robert Green, and I am here as a naturopathic doctor to talk about Part 4 of this bill, especially in the definitions. You talked about music therapy not having any legislation, but the problem with this is that there are no schools in North Carolina that teach naturopathic medicine that are accredited. And your program here, the law here specifically states you have to come from an accredited program in order to qualify for this license. Now, I came from out of state, and I did not go to an accredited program because there are only 7 schools in the entire country. 7 accredited schools, and out of that there are only 8 in the entire country, or entire North America, who are allowed to take the NPLEX, which is the test that gives you the right to call yourself a naturopathic doctor according to this rule. I think the terminology needs to be changed because this will destroy my profession. I will no longer be able to call myself a naturopathic doctor. It will destroy the professions of thousands of naturopathic doctors who do not have this accredited certification from one of these 7 schools. And there, like I said, there's none in Ohio, or none here, or anywhere near North Carolina.
Thank you. Next, we have Blair Nelson.
Good morning. Blair Nelson here. I'm an attorney with the North Carolina Board of Massage and Bodywork Therapy. I'm here in opposition to this bill. The purpose of the Board of Massage and Bodywork Therapy is to protect the public by providing oversight, not just of the massage therapy profession, but other modalities and other professions which fall under the umbrella of bodywork, including reflexology. One way in which the board has been providing this important oversight is by handling and addressing the concerns presented by illicit massage businesses, which are often misusing the term reflexology. The opposition of the board to this particular bill is for 2 main reasons. There are approximately 40 reflexologists here in the state of North Carolina, so the creation of the commission would arguably not generate enough revenue to have the resources to address the illicit massage businesses. Additionally, allowing the creation of this board would also allow these illicit massage businesses to circumvent the requirement of the licensure of establishments. So we would just like to voice our opposition to the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Cynthia Hill. There we go.
You're a great assistant. Hi, I'm Cynthia Hill. I'm with the North Carolina Reflexology Association. Nothing could be more backward than what was just heard. Reflexology is a separate entity. It is by statute of the law exempted from massage, in that the law states that we are exempt because it is an energy therapy. If it barks over here and bites over there, it's energy work. If I fixed your neck and didn't touch your neck because I'm working a reflexology mat, that is energy work. By that, we are exempt. However, the massage board has overstepped their authority and told members of our community that our exemption is no longer valid. This bill gives us a clear lane in which to work and clearly defines what is expected of the ethics, the business of operation, and the education that is actually required of a reflexologist to bring this therapy to the public. This state's motto is to be rather than to seem. We think that apropos in a state that wants to represent reflexology in its entirety. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Dr. Jack Weber.
All right. Good morning, committee. My name is Dr. Jack Weber. I hold a doctoral degree in naturopathic medicine, and I attended a 4-year in-residence, full-time, nationally accredited naturopathic medical school that is recognized by the U.S. Department of Education. Additionally, I have passed rigorous postdoctoral board examinations administered by the North American Board of Naturopathic Examiners, and I currently practice here in North Carolina. I would invite any one of you committee members to come to my practice and see what naturopathic medicine is about. Naturopathic medicine is able to help people from all walks of life who struggle with both acute and chronic conditions. Many of these conditions can be resolved with lifestyle and natural interventions and/or collaboration with primary care providers, neurologists, internal medicine physicians, gastroenterologists, etc. We collaborate with our patients and other providers to make sure that our patients are receiving the best care possible. I do find it's imperative to share with you that the current legislation in front of you was written based on the findings of a 2018 work group headed by the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. This work group was comprised of Dr. Arthur Apolinero, a medical doctor who at the time was serving as a board member for the North Carolina Medical Society, Dr. Mandy Cohen, who was the former secretary of the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, Sean Parker, who was a representative of the North Carolina Medical Board, and 2 naturopathic physicians. This work group strongly recommended that regulation of naturopathic medicine and licensure of naturopathic doctors in North Carolina.
That's time, sir.
Yep, thank you so much. If you would kindly read that work group, it would be fantastic.
So for our future speakers, we've got 1 minute per speaker. We've got another bill to hear, and we've got a lot of folks to hear from here, so we're trying to accommodate as many as we can, so thank you. Don Murphy is the next person up.
Good morning. Thank you. My name is Don Murray. I've been a resident of North Carolina for 20 years. I have been under the care of Dr. Jack Weber for just about 7 years right now, and he has effectively orchestrated and been an integral part of 2 hip replacements, a hernia replacement, and a spinal stenosis, which I'm currently being treated for. He has successfully, and I heard the word umbrella, he has been my umbrella for collaborating with other doctors in getting me the care that I need and in getting me back to normal in expedient fashion without the use of long-term opioids and anything that would have been detrimental to my recovery. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, and I apologize, I can't make out the first name, but the last name is Niels from the NCRA. Phaedra, okay.
Phaedra. Hello, thanks for having me today. My name is Phaedra Neely, and I'm a nationally certified reflexologist with a practice in North Raleigh for 20 years this year. Also a member of the North Carolina Reflexology Association. And here to protect our profession of reflexology and point out with what the massage board would like to do would basically kill reflexology in our state. It would require that reflexologists get their certification, their license, and their continuing ed before doing anything pertaining to reflexology. So we are passionate reflexologists about our profession and our clients, and we want to carry that passion on as opposed to, I said, if they had their way, it would just be a trophy on their shelf that would collect us. We want to see it live and survive and thrive in North Carolina. Please vote for House Bill 557. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Dr. Michelle Drains. There you go.
Thank you. All right. My name is Dr. Michelle Drains, and I'm honored to stand with you before today as a representative of the North Carolina Association of Naturopathic Doctors. I'm a naturopathic physician. I've been in practice here in North Carolina for 10 years, and I currently reside in Cary and practice in Cary. I have sat through examinations. I have been through naturopathic school, and over the past year, several of our skilled and dedicated doctors have actually left North Carolina due to the limitations we face here in practice. I was one of these doctors in 2019, and I left in Oregon because our scope of practice is so wide out there. Like other states, 26 other states and territories in the United States that do licensed naturopathic doctors. So this is not a new thing. In those places, we are integral to collaborating with other doctors, other healthcare providers, and we work in systems in hospitals, inpatient facilities as well. And I would like that for this here, for us in North Carolina.
Thank you. Next, we have Cheryl Stevenson.
Thank you so much. I am Cheryl Stevenson with the North Carolina Music Therapy Task Force. I co-chair the task force, and I've been a professional music therapist, nationally certified, since close to 40 years now. I've been in North Carolina working for almost 35 years, and I can say that without licensure, music therapy is at a stalemate. We're not getting any larger in our field, and we are graduating students from these universities who unfortunately economically are going to other states that currently have licensure, which some of our neighboring states do. So economically, in order to grow the profession, in order to keep building music therapy, we have a medical component to music therapy, which our own hospital where I live in Greenville, North Carolina, is waiting for a licensed music therapist to have a seat at the table. And so we would like to be able to say that we can do what other states do in music therapy, so please help us with House Bill 557.
Thank you. And lastly, we have Susan, I think it says Delaney here, but I'm not 100% sure.
Hi, my name is Dr. Susan Delaney. I'm a naturopathic doctor and with the NCAMP. First, I want to reassure every legislator out here that we do not want to put Mr. Green out of business. He can continue as a wellness counselor, natural medicine, natural coach, whatever he wants. This bill clarifies who can call themselves a doctor. It sets out the standards for calling yourself a naturopathic doctor. We stand lockstep with the North Carolina Medical Society that says doctors should attend 4 years of federally accredited schools, they should pass a licensing exam, and have 24 to 32 hours of continuing education every year. There's a difference here. And just like you can't go out and study law for a couple of years, hang out a shingle, and then want to become licensed as a lawyer. You need to go to law school, take that test. I had the opportunity to attend a trial in the early 2000s of Mr. Lawrence Perry, who was an unlicensed naturopathic doctor. And unfortunately, Rosie died, under the care of an unlicensed naturopathic doctor.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody that came to speak today. We really appreciate that, hearing from the public. What we're going to do now is let my two presenters come up here with their bill, and we'll go ahead and anybody that's got questions and discussion for the bill right now. Representative Blackwell.
I have one question for Representative Warren. Representative Warren, I understood you to say that, I believe, that you've made changes that we now believe will be acceptable to the Senate. What are we doing differently that they are going to now accept, in your opinion?
Thank you. Well, you know, the Senate has always been resistant to licensing boards. In fact, one of the things we've run up against was while we were trying to create one for the music therapist exclusively, they were in the process, and I won't mention names, but they had a point man over that time that was in the process of, and his goal was to reduce the number that we have. There's arguments for and arguments against them. I think what we have this year that's uniquely different, Representative Blackwell, is that a couple of the senators came to us with the naturopathic group to be incorporated into this bill. They recognize that we're only talking about one commission that will encompass several small practices, and we're not actually creating three different boards. We're consolidating all this into one board, and it addresses one of the issues that one of the speakers brought up about resources. It's expensive to have a licensing board, and when you've only got 40 members, you can't afford to do it. There's strength in numbers. The more groups that join under this commission, excuse me, the stronger it actually becomes, because you divide those costs among the different entities underneath it. But we have that support this year with the companion bill in the Senate.
Follow
up? Actually, I have a second question, if I may, Mr. Chairman, for Mr. McLaughlin, if that's... Can you sort of briefly tell us what's changed in the PCS from the original bill, substantively?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, Representative Blackwell. Aaron McLaughlin, Legislative Analysis Division. Most of the changes between the PCS and the original were just merely technical corrections and changes. The one substantive change that I would note is in the first edition, the advisory committees underneath the commission were authorized to direct the commission to adopt rules and to make certain decisions on licensing and just disciplinary matters. And so what this PCS does is it says that the advisory committees can recommend certain new rules or to the commission rather than directing them.
Representative Brody.
Thank you. Also a question for Mr. McLaughlin, if you would permit. Does the I read through this, and of course it was pretty intense. Does this commission allow for the possibility of grandfathering somebody in that is actually doing the work, but doesn't meet some of the requirements that we're now putting into the law?
Mr. Chair, may I respond? Aaron McLaughlin, Legislative Analysis Division. Representative Brody, I don't believe on my recollection that the bill does contain any language that would grandfather in existing practitioners. From my understanding of the bill, the existing practitioners would still have to apply for licensure.
Follow on, just real quick, on a follow on that, please.
Yes, sir.
Well, so this apply for licensure now, one of the ladies was saying now it's an exam, to pass an exam. Now, does that allow somebody who've been practicing, but then can go and pass the exam without going through having to actually go back to school and learn what they're already doing?
Aaron McLaughlin, Legislative Analysis Division. So the way that the licensure generally works for this, because it's all different for each of the three professions, but generally you'll have like a national certifying entity, which is like a non-governmental entity, and those will have certain education and exam requirements. So you get the certification, then you go to the commission, and you can get licensed through the commission. So for practitioners that are already certified. They wouldn't have to get recertified, so they'd still carry their existing certification, but then they would just have to go to the commission and then apply, and having the certification would be a criteria to qualify to get the license, if that answers your question.
For a motion at the appropriate time.
Okay. Representative Ager?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question for the bill sponsor. Thanks. I just want to talk about terminology here real quick, and what I'm confused about is really like the terms doctor and physician, and how this bill is going to help us, or once it's passed and people are licensed as naturopathic doctors, from a patient or a consumer perspective, how do they understand that distinction if everybody's calling themselves doctors, and sort of what is the difference between what a MD can do and what an ND can do, I guess.
I'm trying to digest that question. In fact, I really don't understand your question. I mean, you're asking me how the public can be aware of the difference between...
Right. I mean, it just seems like the terminology to me is confusing. I mean, the medical space is a confusing space, and if you've got, doctor, I mean, when I think of a doctor, I think of an MD, right? That's what I think of. And so what's the distinction between, and how does the licensing differ from a medical doctor and a naturopathic doctor?
I'm going to try to answer that. I think in respect to status, a doctor is a doctor, and their specialty would be designated by the field in which they're practicing. I mean, how do you determine between a general practitioner and a neurosurgeon? They're both doctors. And I think, if I understand your question, and I apologize if I'm not getting it correctly, but there is no distinction between the title or the status. The distinction is between the specialty. Does that help? I do want to point out too, this bill passed without the naturopathic or naturopathic portion of it. This bill passed this committee last year, and I believe it was unanimous, and we weren't able to move it further than that. So really appreciate your support this year.
Okay, we've got another bill, so Representative Price is going to have the last word.
Okay. Well, first of all, I appreciate this bill, and I like the way that it does encompass different modalities of practitioners that often work together. I do have a question, and it might have been, it's quite similar to what Representative Brody had asked, but on that part 4 with the naturopathic doctors, I actually feel comfortable with it saying that, including that you have had to have gone to an institution that's accredited. But do we have, just based on what we heard from one member of the public, do we know how many people would fall out of that category? Or, how difficult would it be for someone to get to meet all these criteria if they haven't done so already? I mean, I think of going to college. I mean, if you want a certain degree, you go there, but...
Excuse me. Representative Price, I do not have a number for how many people are practicing without these certifications in the state today. I know across the board, those who are practicing and would match this is about 40 or so, 40 to 50, somewhere in that neighborhood. But in response to the availability of schools, as I said earlier, there's only 3 colleges. They are in North Carolina. There are 3 North Carolina colleges that do offer a 4-year program for music therapy. However, I would point out, and most of you have kids like I've had 6, and they've gone away to school. I've had kids go away to school as far as New York. My point is, if you are pursuing a profession, that school may not be in your backyard, it may not even be in your state, but you are going to do what you have to do to go to the school of your choice, or the school that provides the requirements you need to get into the profession you want. Now, what's important about this bill and the licensing part of it is, if you do a little research beyond the bill, I mean, the bill has a lot of the requirements to get the licensure, but if you actually get into those fields, particularly the naturopathic, the hours that these people have to put in is just incredible. And there's even a comparison you can see between mainline or mainstream medical studies by comparison to what they're going through. And in some cases, in some specialties, they actually study and put in more time for that. The point of all this is to get a licensure so the public is safe, that people are practicing. Ms. Delaney, I think, was the last speaker, started to allude to an incident where somebody practicing naturopathic medicine actually recommended to a family that their 8-year-old daughter, who was suffering from diabetes, get off of insulin. She ultimately died from that. And this is what we're trying to do. If you want to be in a profession, get the education that's required to know what you're doing safely. And that's all we're asking to do. Help us bring these small groups together so we can get them licensed appropriately and ensure the safety of the general public. Thank you.
Representative Birdie, you up for a motion?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to propose a favorable report to proposed committee substitute for House Bill 557, unfavorable to the original, and referred to rules.
And to authorize staff to make necessary technical changes. I think you were going to say that.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. We have a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. It moves to rules. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee. Appreciate it.
All right.